everybody, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, and welcome back to the Disney Debate where Kat Macberrie, Doug Macberrie, and myself discuss Disney movies and other Disney media. So, I'm alive. I'm actually alive. It's been a while since we've done this.
You are.
Let's see. Let's go over the list of what has happened since the last episode. Let's see. I had a fire at my apartment, and thankfully it did not spread to my actual apartment. But I was away for I think 2 weeks dealing with that, and then I had health issues, and I got food poisoning, and my voice is changing. Like everything is changing. Everything is weird. I blame the original Flubber movie.
The flubber leaked into your vocal cords.
This is what happens. This is what happens when I go and I try to find the flubber in Providence, Rhode Island. And
told you not to do that.
We warned you.
You have nothing to blame. No one to blame but yourself.
I'm sorry. I was curious, and then all of a sudden this happens.
Well, that's what you get.
But yes, I am once again joined by Kat Macberrie.
Hey guys, nice to be back.
And Doug Macberrie.
A little bit of mambo flubber stuff. Blah 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 blah. I am here.
And yeah, this is the first time we're actually recording something together in a few months. It does kind of feel nice. We need to get back in the swing of things. And the good news for today's episode is that we're talking about the final Flubber movie, the Flubber remake with Robin Williams, and it's really, really good. I wouldn't put it in my top 10 movies, but comparatively, compared to the original Absentminded Professor, compared to the sequel, Son of Flubber, it's leaps and bounds better, and it does a much better job of just fixing the flaws of the original movie and actually giving a reason for some of the things in the original movie to exist.
I will give it that, because the thing was, when I initially saw this, I liked it. When I got older, I hated it. But now that I've actually seen the original Absent-Minded Professor in all of its horrible glory, this is a masterpiece. This is a goddamn masterpiece.
I remember being a kid watching this on the Disney Channel and really liking it. And it's like, as a kid, I can understand it. As an adult, having seen the original, you're like, anything is better. Anything is better.
Yeah, we should mention real quick. Technically speaking, we're missing a remake, not a sequel. There was an original remake of this back in 1988, a made-for-television thing. Unfortunately, like with Shaggy Dog, the 1993 version, that movie has been lost to the test of time, so we were unable to locate it, hence why we're ending things off with this. So just wanted to point that out there for any of you nerds who would have pointed out otherwise.
It's funny to mention the Shaggy Dog 2 because this is almost like a reverse of what happened with the Shaggy Dog, because the Shaggy Dog was an okay movie with one really amazing part. The Shaggy DA, the sequel, was like a step up, and it became amazing because it kept going and going and kept doing stuff that was really insanely funny. And then when they went to make the remake with Robert Downey Jr. from Iron Man, it ended up being horrible. Like it was a weird coalescence. But here, with this franchise, with Flubber, we have a film that originally started off as boring and, you can kind of forget it. A sequel which you should probably skip because it's almost worse, but the remake is 10 million times better.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if that's because we had to sit through the awfulness that was the movie and the sequel, but yeah, I was able to sit through this much, much easier than the first one. Granted, it still has its problems, which we're about to talk about, but oh man, this is a nice thing to come back to. Like, it's not like where we usually go on hiatus, we come back to something absolutely god awful. Like this was very much needed.
Yeah, we've had like a lot of bad luck in between, like from the start of the original Absentminded Professor till now. This Flubber marathon should have ended a long time ago, but I'm glad that we ended it on a good note.
For now.
For now, Mr. Doug, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, this was definitely an improvement on the original. Uh, Robin Williams is so fucking charming. You can't help but love him. And yet even in this he's kind of like downplayed. He's a lot more subtle, which is not really a surprise because Robin Williams is one of those versatile actors who could do both like comedy but also do something really serious too. So yeah, no, he's good in this. Yeah, it definitely fixes a lot of the problems. The most of which I think is like he finally realizes when it's time to call it a game. Just, instead of feeling like he's obligated to have this woman, even though he has fucked her over, numerous times. It's like he finally gets it. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna keep doing this. So it's like that alone just made me stop and breathe a sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also got like a whole host of of actors and actresses that we know from other things in this, and it's amazing.
I just really like that there's finally a charm and a likability to the professor, because this is essentially a remake of the original film. It goes on the same beats as the original film, except it does a lot of things to really endear us to the character of the professor. Robin Williams, in a lot of his films, say something like Hook or I'm trying to think of other films that he plays this type of character where he does a good job of playing this character that's a little bit absent-minded, a little bit forgetful, a little bit thoughtless, but he isn't doing so out of a place of selfishness. Yeah, like he's doing it out of his own quirks, his own charms, and I don't know how he pulls it off, but Robin Williams is great at playing this character that, yeah, you would understand why people would be annoyed with him, but you still feel for him, and you feel, especially because every step of the way, he realizes his faults, he realizes why there's a problem, but he's still trying to do good and trying to be a better person, and then he comes up with a fantastic idea, and he gets caught up in the moment, and he can't stop himself. I really like what they do with this character.
Yeah, he definitely is a lot less. I guess the proper word is prideful than the original professor was, because before, it wasn't just about him making scientific discoveries. It was about him pretty much feeding his ego, and saying like, oh yes, I deserve to have praise for my discovery. I deserve to have the woman of my dreams, even though I keep screwing her over, and I deserve to get this money to help the college, even though, I don't really help them in the end. Like that whole element is eliminated with this. It's a whole, like, it's really kind of weird. Like, It's hard to describe. Again, I think it's mostly due to Robin Williams' performance that makes the character so much better than he was. And again, because they updated the element where he's not, your typical misogynistic, old-fashioned man who, he can like spur his girlfriend whenever it's inconvenient to him, but then once she, tries to get away, it's like, oh, now this is about me winning her back. Like, they throw that out the window and they update it wonderfully in this. And although I gotta say, they did add another element that I think was a bit weird. And granted, it kind of explain a lot of what happens in the film, but again, it's really creepy because they add in another character, a robot, and that kind of takes the film in a whole other direction.
Now, this reminded me a lot of Hook, too, because it does, like, it's one of those things where, like, for the most of the film, it's seemingly normal, but it has this one element where, like, in Hook, where Tinkerbell becomes, like, an actual woman and starts falling for Hook, not Hook, for Robin Williams, like, they kind of do this with the robot, where the robot is in love with Robin Williams and has this, bitchy persona, and it's like, this is Tinkerbell.
Pretty much, because whereas in the original they kind of blame all of like his follies on his absent-mindedness, which kind of disappears after the first 15 minutes. In this, you see that his robot, who somehow he gave sentient life to the point where it has like its own personality and everything, kind of sabotages his relationship at every turn. Because, like, she keeps his schedule on file so he doesn't forget anything, but she conveniently neglects to remind him about his wedding. And then when he gets all caught up in an idea when he's about to visit Flubber, and she's like, oh, wait, don't you want to get your wedding? Oh, never mind. So, and it goes on like that, and then she even goes as far to make, like, a holographic human female version of herself in order to, I guess, make out with him in his sleep. And
Can I keep you?
Oh God, that part was like so damn disturbing. Like it had like a Ghostbusters feel like vibe to it almost.
The 90s had this. The 90s had this scene in pretty much every film, like Casper, or Hook, or Flubber. They always had to have this one kind of creepy scene where, like, there was a romantic, like, subplot interest that was creepy. I don't know why, but this happens a lot. So I don't really begrudge it to this film. It was just a trend of the 90s.
I guess. It's still damn creepy, though, especially what happens toward the end of it. But,
so we have the original beats of the original film, but now we have this robotic assistant, which does explain a little bit more of his absent-mindedness, where she's not always helping in his love life, and because she's really jealous, and that's kind of understandable. They also do a good job of showing his absent-mindedness in the beginning too, where he goes into the wrong class and starts teaching without even thinking.
I actually really love that scene.
I love that scene because, like, he goes into this life drawing class where there's nude modeling going on, and he starts teaching and he doesn't even realize it. And it's like, you can understand that once he gets, like, started with something, it's hard to get him to stop. And I know I can get like this sometimes. I have selective hearing sometimes. I think others can kind of relate to this too, where we're not even thinking, and then when we finally realize it, we're like, oh God.
Yeah, I do love that scene too, because he's even like incorporating like the nude models into like his physics example. It's like, as you see, like the space between the man and the woman, and of course are parallel, and we'll like naturally have them go toward each other. I'm like, is he about to explain sex?
And it's like he doesn't even realize that there's like a naked woman right in front of him. He's just like, oh.
Oh, and let's not forget the fact that Robin Williams is prone to go on, like, tangents. So, yeah, honestly, the casting was incredibly perfect. A little too perfect.
Yeah,
Well, apparently, the writer John Hughes, like Robin Williams, was his choice from the very beginning, and they were actually going to make this movie a lot earlier, like in the early '90s. But because by that point Robin Williams had that falling out with Disney over what they did to him in Aladdin, he, of course, wanted to distance himself from the company, and he didn't come back till like 5 years later when they officially apologized, and that's when John Hughes absolutely demanded that he be in Flubber, and I'm really glad he held out for that because I think it worked out to their benefit.
Now, I know you explained this to me, this entire thing to me the other day when we watched the film, but for those of you who don't know about the falling out between Robin Williams and Disney, why don't you give a little bit of an explanation about that?
Sure. Did you want to, Doug, or you want me to do it?
I'll go ahead with it.
Okay.
So basically, when Robin Williams signed on to do Aladdin, he had a stipulation in his contract that he didn't want, his name, and, his name used for merchandising, for, advertising, stuff like that. He didn't want himself or his character to be used for, like, commercials or for merchandise. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was like head of the PR at the time, went behind his back and still did it anyway. So Robin Williams decided to, leave, and he did not want to work with Disney. And then Jeffrey Katzenberg left for DreamWorks, and the guy who took his place wound up, formally apologizing to Robin Williams about it. And so he came back, and, that's why you have him back for Aladdin and the King of Thieves, and for this, and for other, Disney property movies.
And it's really good that they did, because honestly, this film wouldn't be nothing without Robin Williams. I think the casting of him was perfect. I think while there are some core issues still with the Absentminded Professor idea, Robin Williams somehow makes them work. And if it wasn't him at the core of this film, I don't think I would like it quite as much.
It's interesting because they actually had a backup list of celebrities they were going to ask to play Professor Brainard as well, just in the event that Robin Williams would never be able to come back and do this. And I kind of think some of the choices are interesting. Among other names, you have Billy Crystal, Christopher Lloyd, Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Tim Allen, and Patrick Stewart.
Out of all those, I would have liked to see John Lithgow the most.
At least that would have made his choice of car make more sense.
Yes.
There are some interesting cast members here. Then again, I was wondering if they would choose Will Smith to play Robin Williams as this.
Oh my god. Ugh. No, we have to wait a decade or so before that happened.
That would be really funny. It's like he starts rapping about chemistry.
Oh my god. And I imagine Will Smith would try to do that role too in an attempt to be, artsy or whatever, and just totally botch it, because that's just not the type of character he is.
For the record, I have not seen the new Aladdin yet. I've been very sick, but I will see the new Aladdin soon. I hear Will Smith raps again. That's all I want.
Yeah, Doug and I did see it, and we think it's okay. We actually do kind of like Will Smith in this, but we'll get more into that when we get to the end of year podcast. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first part, they recast. They recast. Okay, so you have Robin Williams as the main character. Brilliant move. Now, another good thing that I really enjoy about this film is that they cut out a lot of the subplots. They finally realized, a lot of this stuff is either padding or boring, so let's rework it, and they take out, a lot of things that didn't work about the original. They still keep the other person who's trying to court his wife, but they give justification for him, and he's played by a much better actor, who you may know from Happy Gilmore as the greatest golfer in the world.
Christopher McDonald. AKA the asshole in every film.
That's also perfect casting because, I already don't like him because he is perfect at playing this character, and he's just like, he's hamming it up throughout most of the film, and you're just like, anytime something bad happens to him, you're like, yes, I enjoy this.
I just love how transparently evil he is in this film. Because whereas in the original one where the guy, the only way in which he was an antagonist was by the fact he was trying to steal the girl. In this case, not only is he trying to steal Brainard's fiance, but he's also trying to steal his research and put his college out of, and close down his college and basically help the guy who's buying it out. And he does this all behind the scenes too, but from the very beginning when they introduce him, he just casually walks into the professor's classroom and he's like, "Oh, hey Phil, how you doing? What happened? Things went so bad between us." He's like, and Brainerd's like, "Well, yeah, you tried to steal my work and pass it off as your own." And he's like, "Oh yeah, right, I remember that now. Such a shame. You could have benefited from it. Anyway, I'm here to steal your fiance from you." I'm like, wow, you are not even trying to hide it. But then again, you're Chris McDonald. We know you're the villain anyway, so why bother?
They just do a great job of showcasing. At this point in time, he's probably done this a few times. He's stolen quite a few of his ideas. He's profited off of it. So he's smug. He's not gonna just, he doesn't even give a fuck anymore. he's just straight up like, "Mr. Steal your girl and your ideas."
Mm-hmm. Although, granted, he's much less annoying than the other guy, because where the other guy was an English professor, so he was one of those pretentious poet types that was always sprouting out some sort of Shakespeare line just to make himself seem more romantic and try to win her over. Here, he actually acts like a human being, and he acts normally around her too. Although he does get a bit creepy at times. For instance, after the wedding falls apart, and he's trying to be there for her, and then they said they decide to go to the basketball game together. She's like, "Tell you what, if my team wins, I'll treat you to dinner." And he's like, "Well, if my team wins, how about we go up to the cabin in the woods for the weekend?" Creepy.
I don't think you want to go to the cabin in the woods. That's full of monsters.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do a good job of making this character. You can understand why the girlfriend would like him a little bit, because he actually acts normal around her. He does his best to be sneaky when he's not around Brainerd, and it's there's a lot of good updates put with this character that I really like. And not to mention the fact that he's working with the villain of the movie actually gives reason for him to be in the movie.
Although the problem is, with Chris McDonald being such a good villain, he kind of takes away from the others, because because that's the only thing I think that the original did better, was the fact that they had Keenan Wynn as the big baddie. He was the millionaire alumni who was ready to shut down the college and turn a profit and everything. And he, of course, comes up with the plan to steal the Flubber and to blackmail Brainerd and everything. And here, he's kind of just there as a plot device. The guy has no personality. I think he's that guy from Law and Order or something, but he has no real personality. He's just typical evil corporate greedy businessman. And his son, whereas in the original, his son was kind of weirdly ambiguous in that, he was good-natured but dumb, and he was willing to help his father in his evil schemes but turns good by the end. In this case, his son is just a straight-up asshole, just like him. There's no ambiguity whatsoever. Wheaton. Yeah, it is Will Wheaton. You can't help that.
Shut up, Wesley. Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah, so I think that's the only part where it falters, because it's like, why do we really need these two here if, if Chris McDonald's the big mastermind behind everything? They could have just made it so that he was the greedy businessman who was gonna buy out the college and close it down. Like they really do not need those separate characters, and I think the only reason they did it was because that's what was in the original.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? Have you ever seen the movie Blank Check?
Yes, I have.
These villains are like these typical like 90s. We're evil businessmen and we have our henchmen, but we have no personality type thing. Like
they even have henchmen in this one too.
Yeah.
They have two henchmen that they try to have at first try to blackmail Brainerd into changing the kid's grade because he flunked chemistry and got kicked off the basketball team as a result. But then that's when he invented Flubber, and that's when we have this whole big shenanigans scene where he's coating a golf ball and a bowling ball in Flubber to see if they have the same reaction when bouncing, and the whole thing pretty much turns into Home Alone from there, in which they're basically the goons that get beat up and put in these situations where they should die 10 times over, but they don't for some reason.
Basically take out the vehicular manslaughter bit and replace it with this.
And to be fair, I think this is a really funny recurring gag. Like, it just keeps going and going throughout the film. This bowling ball and the golf ball just keep going up and down throughout the entire film, and it's one of those, like, you would think it would get old, but to me, I think it just gets funnier.
But it only seems to happen when Clancy Brown and Ted Levine are there. It's like they never see those balls outside of when they're in those exact spots.
I know, leave Clancy Brown alone. He's awesome.
And the henchmen are actually more fun than the villain too, because like the way they keep getting hurt, and it seems like the more brain damage they suffer, the deeper their voices get.
And the more irrationally they act.
Yeah. It's
it would make sense for Ted Levine. He was Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
It puts the flubber on its skin, or else it gets the hose.
God.
He puts the flubber on its skin, and then it gets traumatized.
Hey, he was also in Monk. Let's get out of this.
And I honestly really like the addition of the goons because it gives a little bit more for them to do, and I find them very funny. Another thing they added throughout the film, a running gag, which I thought was really funny, but poor kid. They have a traumatized little kid throughout the movie who, like, his parent keeps saying, "Oh, there's nothing out your window, there's nothing here," and something keeps happening. Like, at first he sees, like, stuff going on with Flubber, and then he sees, like, golf balls bouncing up, and he goes to see his father, and then the henchmen are launched into his tree, and then later on the airplane.
There's a Flubber on the wing.
I know, that poor kid, like, I'm thinking, like, John Hughes must have had, like, a tiff with his neighbor, like, growing up, and he's like, "This is for you, Jimmy, for all the time you beat me up. I'm gonna traumatize the shit out of you."
I wonder if they did this, like, kind of like as the sequel, because in the sequel that they had the guy with the chicken coop, the recurring gag. I mean,
maybe.
This is
I don't know.
A funnier update.
I don't know. I felt more bad for the kid than anything. It's not like the kid was a little, like, shit or anything that was doing bad stuff and he deserved, like, all this, getting traumatized. He was like this poor kid that was just trying to sleep, and all these, like, all this shit keeps happening in his bedroom. Like, the flubber comes crashing through the window. These two creepy men end up in his tree. A guy in a flying car comes out of nowhere. Like, Jesus, I'd be afraid to sleep too.
I also like they also did a gag where they had, like, the blob on the TV when the flubber came through.
How appropriate.
And as we all know, Flubber is in Providence, Rhode Island, so it probably created its, the giant blob, and that's how we got that movie.
I gotta say, I do like the update to Flubber in this, because instead of just being a rubber compound that can do these, like, impossible things, this thing is actually, like, sentient. It actually, like, has, like, can form shapes and everything, and it, like, apparently has somewhat of a personality, at least is, like, a goofball and everything. And I do like how they show him experimenting with it, showing how you can use it in different compounds and stuff. And granted, they did that in the original, but I think they did it in this better, especially in terms of explaining how they got all the basketball players to jump. Because before, like, they had him, like, ironing the flubber onto the bottom of their shoes, and to me that made no goddamn sense, because it's like, how does nobody see or smell that? And why the hell is nobody instantly bouncing when they're walking around? Whereas in this case, he just sprays it, he makes it into a liquid form, sprays it on tacks that he puts under the shoes, and he reduces the quantity so that they don't start kicking in until like half an hour into the game. Like, that's actually clever.
Not to mention, he continuously tests the flubber, like, because if he had done it the first thing, you know, it wouldn't have worked, because he tested it on himself, and he almost, like, you know, he kept getting hurt. With really good slapstick, I would like to say. But like, he tested it on himself, and he realized, oh, I need 15% flubber solution for this to actually work effectively.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, and I like the CGI on Flubber too. I mean, of course it looks fake as shit, but it still looks nice. Like, you know, it's not like the horror that we've experienced with stuff like the Shaggy Dog. So
the CGI is minimal. The flying car is much better green screen this time around. And overall, like, I like that he used his DNA with the flubber to make it sentient. Like, there were good ideas and updates with the flubber altogether. What do you think, Mr. Doug?
Oh, yeah. No, I think definitely it was a better choice to have Flubber actually have kind of like a personality, to kind of be a character, but at the same time, you know, also a device. Yeah, I like the fact that they actually, like, show him tooling around with it, making it into different kind of compounds so that it is more believable, like, you know, seeing him putting it in, like, a cream form or the liquid form. So yeah, no, I definitely think this was a much needed update to Flubber, both, you know, in the title and, you know, the actual stuff.
Speaking of the actual stuff, let's talk about the basketball game. First of all, this is so much better than the basketball game in the original version, especially because you have this team which they're gonna get crushed out there. It's a team of, yeah, stereotypical nerds, which I don't understand why they're playing basketball if they're this nerdy, but okay. Like, they're just really bad at basketball.
Because it's your typical, like, 80s, 90s tropes where they show the underdog team and they have to make them look as wimpy and nerdy as possible, so that way that makes the other team look so much more big and aggressive. That way it's more, you know, amazing when they do a come-from-behind win.
And of course, they even have the pathetic coach played by Sam Lloyd, who you might know as Ted from Scrubs.
Oh my god, I love it. I love him in this. Ted is just like, he makes this speech at the beginning of the basketball game. It's like, yeah, they've been undefeated and this, and he keeps going on and he starts crying. It's like,
and he gives like the most demotivational speech ever, which I expect nothing less from Ted.
So it's like, on one hand, I do agree it's like a stereotypical, like, cliche with the 90s thing, but Ted just sells that. Like, I love his speech, and he's like, go out there, and at first they are losing incredibly, but they do this really cool thing with the flubber on the tacks, where the paint prevents the flubber from acting, but the paint wears off after like 15 minutes, and so once that wears off, then they can actually start using it, so it doesn't look like, oh, they're cheating from the beginning.
Although, once again, it still points out the fact that they are cheating. And honestly, when you really think about it, given all that he's like tested in terms of the flubber, and he does like the whole car scene before like the basketball scene, it's like you invented flight, you invented all these other stuff, so why are you wasting this on a basketball game when you could be selling this to businesses to get money for the college? Like, I thought we were on a time crunch here.
Well,
then
he
again,
does. He does go to the car company, which I really love that scene.
Yeah, after his fiance points out what a fucking idiot he is and is like, hey, like, why don't you actually use this? Why don't you actually sell this to a car company so we can save the college? And he's like, oh yeah.
and they have this appointment with Ford, and he's like, oh no, just we're gonna cancel it. It's like, no, he's right
He's right
outside.
here.
Like, literally,
And-
open the window.
and it's like they do a much better update. Don't go to the government, go to a car company.
Yeah,
Market
thank God
your
for that.
idea. So they did great updates with that. But back to the basketball game. First of all, in a nod to both Air Bud and the original film, they have like, it's like there's no rule that says they can't jump that high. No, sit down. Like, I love that entire scene. I love it so much. Yeah, it's stupid and it's lifted wholesale from the original, but it's like they show some really good, funny stuff with the flubber. First of all, like, he puts the flubber on his hands and he like high fives all the basketball people, so like they can bounce the basketball so much. But he also like slaps this boy on his butt. The fat kid, the typical 90s movie fat kid, because there's always a fat kid for
Get
some
it?
reason.
He's fat.
Yep.
So you have all of them like bouncing it, and he gets like pushed back, and he bounces on his butt, and he goes into the basketball hoop, and he makes this. It's like there's all these. It's stupid, but it works. It works so much better than the original. It's like on its own, I would take it much better than the original. If it wasn't for the original, I wouldn't say it was the best thing ever, but it's still it's still funny.
Yeah. In this
Although-
case, they actually like show them like dribbling the ball really fast instead of them just like jumping high all the time and possibly traveling. So it's like, yeah, this actually works.
Although there is one part that kind of is disturbing where he like outright blackmails one of his students into jumping at a critical moment, otherwise he'll fail him in chemistry.
Jump!
I know, he's like jump or I'll flunk you out of my program forever. He's like, what? That's a little harsh. Don't you think? Jump! I'm like, God damn it! Like,
It's
dude,
like,
it's like I know at that point he's like the kid's like like sabotaging himself by taking off the tacks on his shoe, but come on, dude, you're like being blatant here, like, and it's kind of disturbing.
Yeah, it is kind of it's funny, but I do agree, like, it is a little bit traumatizing. Although when he throws the towel and it hits the guy in the face.
Oh, he's thrown in the towel.
Oh.
It's like I thought there was some good stuff there. Now let's actually talk about the climax of the film, because this film actually does have a climax. Oh my god, wow. This film actually has a climax, unlike the original. So
Well, it does, just in a different way. It's not one big chase; it's an actual fight.
So what happens in the finale is the villain finally realizes at the basketball game, oh, Brainerd is using Flubber to help them win. My henchmen aren't crazy, even though they're covered in huge welts all over their head. So, and then he sees the flying car, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna steal his I wanna, go try to muscle him out of his territory. Brainerd refuses, and he has his henchmen go in and steal Flubber, which these are the most the most obnoxious thieves in existence, because they just break everything in his lab.
Yeah, it's like, no, you can't just walk in all subtly and just, grab the Flubber. No, let's break down his door, let's smash his shit, let's create a case for insurance and for the police. Like, come on, dude. And on top of that, they almost get their ass beat by a floating robot, like a quarter their size.
And so yeah, like because they steal Flubber and pretty much kill the robot, Brainard is starting to get his revenge after a. It was supposed to be sad, but I didn't really care too much about the robot. After a supposedly sad scene where we find out that the robot has made a baby, and we'll get back to that.
Oh, God.
We'll get back to that, but after that scene, Brainard decides to get his revenge, and honestly, I really like this climax. He goes in, and he's like, well, you don't know how to use the Flubber. You don't know. I know how to, so let me use that. Let me use that for you. I will help you out if you,
Why are you going to sell me something that I already own?
Well, I know how to use it. You don't. It's dangerous. It's unstable. Plus, I'm not an idiot like this guy is over here. So, like, he
Well, no,
starts.
his whole thing was, he offers to help them with the Flubber. They extend the time for the loan to pay back the loan on the college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's an explanation, but the whole time he has this plan. So, in the beginning of the movie, we see that large flashes of light, like from a camera or like a car, could set off the Flubber and make it react in a bad way. And so he has the flying car on remote, and he essentially uses it to set off the Flubber, and he and his wife take out the goons with a really funny scene. But the thing that really sells it beforehand was they try to search him for stuff beforehand. He's like, oh, this is stuff that I need to handle the Flubber, and he rubs the cream on his hands, and he's like, okay, and this and this. And then he's also like, oh, that's a squirt gun. It helps, with the Flubber as well. And the guy, one of the henchmen shoots the squirt gun in this guy's face, and he's like, yeah, just let him have it. Like, let him have the squirt gun. And the scene goes on, like, he keeps squirting the guy in the face. And it's like, no, just really let him have him. Give him the gun.
I mean, if this scene didn't pay off later, I would have been annoyed by it. But I do like after he spends a lot of time squirting him with the liquid Flubber, and then he tries to punch him later, his fist just, like, bounces right back off his chin.
It's so, like, they're... And, like, obviously these guys have brain damage by now, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
I think one of their wounds is open.
So they have this big climactic fight scene. I enjoy it. The only thing that I didn't enjoy, and I find legitimately disturbing, is how Flubber takes out the final guy, the evil arch-rival. Flubber goes inside his throat.
Full body endoscopy and colonoscopy.
Ugh.
I don't think we want to be touching that Flubber anymore.
As someone who has just recently had food poisoning, ouch.
Like, we actually get two, I want to say, gruesome deaths in, like, this scene, because we never see them again after the climax. We have no idea if they're alive or not after this. Like, the first death we see is of the one henchman, because Brainard brings his fiancée with him, and she also has the Flubber tacks on her shoes and everything, and she's bouncing along with him and fighting back. And at one point, as she's bouncing around, she lands on top of the guy's head, heels first, presumably landing within his eye sockets. They don't show, like, the aftermath or any blood or anything, but it's, like, it's pretty safe to assume he's probably dead. Because, heels to the head, like, that is kind of fatal when used properly. And then, like you said, with Chris McDonald, the Flubber going throughout him, it's like, oh god, like, I can't imagine a more horrible death. Like, like going through every single inch of, like, his colon and everything. It's just, oh god.
Again, having experienced food poisoning recently, ouch.
Well, the good news is he's not constipated anymore.
Oh.
And it, like, goes, like, it breaks through his pants too. Like,
yeah, just burn the Flubber, start over. We don't need to handle that ever again.
And so yeah, we have that fight scene, and while there are some disturbing moments, overall I found it very fun, very enjoyable. But then let's talk about the baby, the computer baby. Kat, do you want to
Oh
talk about
god.
it?
So, yeah, one thing that I feel they didn't update appropriately, or at least there are parts they didn't update appropriately and parts that they added that really make it creepy. They still have the whole thing with him leaving his fiancée at the altar 3 times, which to me, I think they should have reduced it to like at least 2, because honestly, who in their right mind would marry someone the 3rd time around or attempt to marry them? And she's like smarter in this version. Like his fiance, she's like president of the college and a doctor and a professor, so she's way smarter. So you think, why the hell is she putting up with this? But yeah, like as I said, mentioned before, Weibo, who's in love with the professor, has been sabotaging their relationship this entire time. You know, finding ways to break them up and finding ways to get herself closer to the professor to make him see her more as a human, and ultimately failing, of course. And eventually, after the basketball game, she realizes what a mistake she made in, you know, breaking them up, because he's devastated by her loss. So she gets them back together, and then of course she gets taken out by that goon during the stealing of the
invasion.
Flubber. Yeah. So. And of course, you know, it's supposed to be sad and everything, because according to the professor, he never was able to recreate the procedure in which he created Weibo. He said it was like some sort of glorious accident, so he never found any of his notes or anything, so he just kind of like left it at that. But it was revealed this whole time that Weibo actually downloaded like a backup of herself, like all her schematics, so that he can recreate her. However, she altered it so that she removed a couple of her flaws and added a bit of him. And she calls this new version of herself her daughter. Like their daughter.
It's kind of creepy. And again, it's like that scene in Hook where she becomes a girl, where Tinkerbell becomes a woman for a second and then does it. It just, why? It's the 90s. It's weird.
But it's like kind of weird and kind of a bit rapey too, because it's like the equivalent of a woman who is in love with this guy who doesn't love her back, and then she like freezes her eggs and then somehow gets a hold of his sperm and then like has like a surrogate baby with him. Like, that's pretty much what it is, and it's really freaking creepy. And the fact that Weibo's voiced by Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel, kind of makes it even more creepy. Because now, when you close your eyes, suddenly you're seeing, like, somebody's fanfic of Ariel being shipped with a genie.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la, don't be scared. You got the robot prepared. Go on in.
No! No, under no circumstance, no. It's not that fucking, that movie with Scarlett Johansson, was it like the iPhone or whatever?
Oh, Her?
Yeah, Her. This is not the movie Her. Come on.
So yeah, what do you think, Doug?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with Kat on that. The whole robot, the Weibo was kind of, Like, a lot of the things she does is, like, she kind of just up and shows, like, these, movie or TV clips for emphasis, and that's kind of her shtick outside of, the whole her creepy romance thing. Yeah, no, it's like...
And she has a musical number with Flubber.
Mumbo.
Which... It's visually pretty, but it's padding.
They never explain why she let Flubber out. Like, he just tells her not to do it, she does it anyway, we get that whole dance scene, and nothing of consequence happens. It was just like, let's show off the new effects we've come up with, and that's about it.
I mean, to be fair, it does intercut with the basketball game, so to an extent, I do think that makes the basketball game feel like less padding, but it still is padding for padding's sake.
Yeah.
It's padding, but it's visually appealing padding.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so let us talk about overall. Overall, while there are certainly issues, I do think there's 90s cliches, and I didn't really like Weibo all that much. I think there were some disturbing elements too. I still really like this. I think this is a great update. I think this does what the Shaggy Dog remake should have done in updating ideas, making things more funny, better, less Tim Allen. Um, like they just did such a great job of understanding what worked about the original and what did not, and modernizing it and just making it fun. Without Robin Williams, I don't think this would work, but I'm not sure. Kat, what do you think overall?
Oh, this is a million times better than the original, like so much so. Like I said, I did kind of cringe and roll my eyes at certain parts, but nowhere near as much as the first two films. Like, this is such a drastic improvement, and I know a lot of people like to give this one shit for having the obvious tropes, for being like another John Hughes wannabe Home Alone ripoff, and having all the cheesy effects that take precedence, and it's not one of Robin Williams' better films or whatever, but I still greatly enjoyed this. Like, it's nice because, like I said, I liked it before, I hated it later, and now I love it again. And I want to keep that love. Like, this makes, like, the old films made me appreciate this so much more. Although, like I said, the only downside to all this is, again, the romance. Because, again, they should have updated, certain parts of that. Especially that goddamn ending where he didn't show up to his own wedding. Like, motherfucker, are you serious?
You are now wife and robot.
So she's married to the robot now? Like, is that how it works?
You may now kiss the robot.
Like, at least in the original, the guy showed up at the end. In this case, like, come on, dude. Like, that was, to me, like, the biggest misfire in the whole film is, like, come on, dude. You can't stop for, like, 1 second just to, like, at least get through the wedding vows. Like, come on.
And he still blows himself up a second time.
Oh my god.
Mr. Doug, what do you think?
Yes, this was so much more bearable than the original two films. Definitely, yes, it was. This movie probably would not have worked without Robin Williams. But yeah, even so, yes, they updated a lot of the things that seriously needed to be updated. There's definitely still cringe, but I cringe far less than I did at any moment in the original two. So, and I mean, there are people in here that do also contribute to making it a fun time. It's not my favorite movie by any stretch of the imagination. I don't really want to watch it again, but I don't regret watching this one.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I think we should say before we sign off is, we have finally finished the Flubber Marathon, and I am so thankful that unlike the Shaggy Dog Marathon, that the Flubber Marathon was actually ending on a high note. Thank you so much.
Thank God.
Thank you.
It's like I know I know that old saying where they say the more movies there are, like, the worse the series gets. But in this case, I think the opposite stands true. So thank God for that. And now we just have to worry about the next freaking marathon we gotta do of movies, The Parent Trap.
Yay!
Oh, and that's like, oh God, I think that's like 6 movies. Oh my fucking God. Why do we do this? Why do we put ourselves through this? Why?
Everyone betray me. I fed up with this flub. Oh, hi, Mark. So with that being said, I'm really looking forward to hopefully better things in the future. We finally finished a second marathon, and now going on to The Parent Trap, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But for now, I am Zenith, Warrior Princess.
I'm Kat Macberrie.
I'm Doug Macberrie.
And just remember, once you flub, something Robin Williams is awesome.
It puts the flubber on its skin.
No.
He was in Monk! He was in Monk!
Have a good night, everybody.
Hey, this is Megami33. Thank you for watching Zenith Will Review. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. If you like what you see, check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/ZenithWillReview.